So collaboration between designers and trade experts is going to become one of the most potent competitive advantage for the companies that are able to achieve that. So what it translates to is that so you have the design teams and the trade experts sitting together in the same room and figuring out the most optimal way to engineer a product as well as the finished product itself by weighing in the very large, elaborate tariff list of items and determination of that how do you achieve optimal price point or the cost goals by influencing the ultimate design. The translation of that means it's a tariff engineered design. So what does it mean? I'll give you a couple of examples. This is a nice piece of footwear. It's a boot made by an incredibly agile company called Columbia Sportswear. So if you look at this boot, the rubber sole that you see on this boot, it has or it carries, as of the latest tariff guidelines, 37.5% tariff on every pair of boot that gets imported from China. On the other hand, if you cover this boot with a very thin sheet of fabric, the tariff will drop down to 12.5%. So that's what this company did. That's what, in fact, Columbia Sportswear did. If you go and buy a lot of their boots, hiking boots and such, you will find that the customers will find that there's a thin, transparent sheet of fabric on the sole. And within a couple of days, the sheet of fabric kind of withers away and you're left with the actual boot. But what in process ended up happening is Columbia Sportswear, they ended up saving more than 20%, 25% of the tariff that they would otherwise pay on the same product while imported from overseas. So by getting that input to the design team without compromising the overall integrity of product, they have managed to achieve an incredible amount of savings and at the same time making sure the consumer itself is not impacted. Another example. So this piece of nice jacket, it's a rain jacket. Now, if it's a non-waterproof jacket, the tariff is 27.7%. On the other hand, the moment you put in a water-resistant coating on that, the tariff becomes only 7%. So there's a 20% drop in the tariff on the same product the moment you make it water-resistant. Furthermore, if you fill it up with down, as an example, goose down or down, if you fill it up with down by up to 10% of the weight of the jacket, the tariff goes all the way down to almost nothing to 4.4%. So this is another example where if Columbia Sportswear, as they do, their designers are sitting with their chief tariff head and the tariff head brings in his experts, they all sitting down together and trying to figure out what could be done to the products that are being produced and designed to ultimately goal is to make them tariff elastic or tariff proof. So this is another example how Columbia Sportswear have managed to successfully bring down the tariff while making small tweaks to the final end product for the customer. So in the end, to be totally candid, uh, what I would say businesses ought to consider is doing what the masters in tariff engineering do. So there are two companies that really have nailed it down over the years as to how to navigate changing tariff realities. The first company is Nike, right? That's and the second one is, which I gave a couple of examples of, is Columbia Sportswear. So what these companies have ultimately done is they've decided that, hey, design and merchandise from central location. If all the brainchild, if all the creativity happens to be in head office, wherever the head office is in America, then doing a center location, the design, and the overall merchandise for all your global products. Once that is done, you should absolutely make it wherever it makes sense. In other words, the whole notion of trying to bring it back to where you are and manufacturing locally is a non-starter, especially for clothing, for footwear, for household goods, for furniture, just because A, the cost will be very prohibitive, and B, the actual manufacturing expertise that is required to make those products with the kind of quality, with the kind of productivity, it just doesn't exist anymore. All of that has been shifted over to overseas over the last decades and decades and decades. So it's better to focus on making sure you make the product where it should be made. Where it is being made is where the most productive expertise does exist. And finally, sell it everywhere in the world. So effectively, Nike, Columbia Sportswears, among many other, let's call it masters in tariff engineering brands, they are they have embraced the idea of making sure that tariff does matter. They have made sure that their product design is factoring in the impact of tariff, and ultimately they do what they do best, which is design and merchandise from central location, making wherever they make, and ultimately selling it to their customers worldwide using a variety of channels and marketing machinery that they have honed in over the years.